Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of the Portland Fly Shop Podcast. My name is Jason Osborne. I've owned the shop for 8 years. I have been guiding the Pacific Northwest for 20, born, raised here, been fly fishing here forever.
And I'm Nick. I also work here at the shop with Jason. And when we're not helping people figure out their next trip, we're usually on the water or at least talking about it. So we figured, why not hit the record button and make a podcast?
This show is going to be a mix of everything in the fly fishing scope, from stories from guides in the trenches to our experiences out there for where the industry is headed, what gear is worth the money, what gear is not worth the money, the good, bad, and the ugly of all things fly fishing. Today we are talking about the world-famous Deschutes Salmonfly hatch, and by the time this comes out, we will be right around the corner, 2-3 weeks at most, away from you fishing dry flies.
Okay, now you got the script out of the way. Locked down today. Okay, round two.
Round two. We're right around the corner from the hatch, and we can't express enough how much we want you to use us as a resource. Yes, we're a business. Yes, we sell things. We're only as good as the community, and you are the ones who make this whole thing happen. So we want to really make sure that we can offer you every question answered, where to go, what to do. Just email us, call us. You're fine. There's no stupid questions. We've got over 40 years between the both of us, and there's stuff that we didn't even think of in this podcast to cover. I'm sure of it. As soon as the camera gets shut off, we're going to be like, oh, we should have said this. So call us, use us. We honestly want to make sure that you have the best experience possible. This is a big deal. This only comes out once a year, and you can have some of the best days of the year fishing giant dry flies to giant trout. So we just want to make sure that you are prepared and you go there with confidence. Use us as a resource. You're not bothering us, I promise.
Yeah, it's my job to make sure you're trying to catch as many fish as possible. I want you to be successful. That's my goal. I don't want to hear about how you went there and it sucked. I want to hear about how I helped you and went. So call, ask questions. If you don't ask questions, it's harder to sometimes go do the right things and fish the right spots. So I don't like to hold anything back. I'm not the person that's well, I don't want you in my spot. I'm going to tell you where to go. I may not say that rock to stand on, but I'll be darn close.
And I'm his boss, and that is his job. So
yeah, exactly.
Make sure he does his job. This episode will air at the end of April, right in time for your hatch, the Salmonfly hatch. Get out there and do it this year. This is your year. Go kick some ass.
So whether the Deschutes is or is not a blue ribbon trout stream, I feel like it is Oregon's as close as it can be. And especially anything in this area. This river, this hatch, this stonefly hatch is epic. People are coming from all over the nation, all over the world to fish this. So many of these guides get booked a year in advance for this hatch. If you want to experience the most epic fishing that basically Oregon has to offer, I think it does, it is the Salmonfly hatch on the Deschutes. Get there, get after it, catch these fish because they are aggressive, they're eating big dries, and they just want to go, right? The Deschutes is a powerful river. This is your chance to get a 16, 18-inch trout deep in your vacuum.
This is the Catalina wine mixture. So here we are. We're in late April. The Deschutes Salmonfly hatch is right around the corner. The shop's getting busy, and the buzz is happening. Every year, people get really excited pre-hatch. About mid-hatch, there's been a few really tough days out there, and the air gets popped out of the balloon, and we're here to basically talk to you about how to keep those good days and just help you experience some days that we have experienced as far as numbers, size, just those great days on the water. We tend to get a lot of them, but we have been on the river for a very long time. So we want to try to get you more fish, better days, and share with you what we have learned in the last 20 years of working this hatch.
So what we're going to talk about on the show today is a little bit of location. What we're talking about as far as the lower Deschutes and what that is. The timing of the hatch, right? That's a really important factor there. And then kind of how to manage yourself around the crowds that will exist in the center of the explosion of the hatch. And then kind of extending your repertoire of maybe what like patterns you should have or what you should be fishing. The other things, of course, will be kind of going through some of the gear, what we use, what we like maybe to kind of help your odds, and then kind of gauging the weather, wind, and flows of the Deschutes and what might change if you come into those certain days that you're on water.
So let's look at location first. When we're talking about the Deschutes River, we're talking about the lower 100 miles below Pelton Dam. 100 miles, all right? So every year, the crowds really hit the Warm Springs area. That's, for whatever reason, become the most popular. I kind of have theories on why that is, but the entire lower 100 miles of the river will fish for the salmonfly hatch. It just depends on what time you're there.
The kind of sub-locations, like when we're talking about the different parts of that last 100 miles, right? We have the kind of upper lower, which I would consider kind of the Warm Springs, Trout Creek section. That's like closer to Bend, but still not Bend. And then you have like the Maupin stretch. That's kind of like the middle of the lower Deschutes, right? That's where you have all the access roads where you can go up or down. And then the very bottom end we'll consider basically the confluence where it enters in to the Columbia, right? So that's basically right there, Heritage Landing. So those are like the three different sections of the lower Deschutes. There's other parts of the Deschutes, and they have their own things, but this main podcast, we are going to go through that exact location.
So I know Nick loves the Warm Springs section dearly. I love it all. I really do. I tend to focus now more in the Maupin stretch and the lower river, like below Shears Falls, only because the crowds are so much lighter in the lower stretch. And I think because Bend exploded in popularity, that whole Central Oregon area, Sisters Bend, Redmond, there has been a ton of people have moved over there. And so not only does the Warm Springs stretch get most of the Portland crowd, but now you're getting like a much more populated Central Oregon crowd. And, Warm Springs only 45 minutes from that area. So we're getting like two kind of major metropolitan areas blasting towards the same 8 miles of river. And then also it's a very, very easy float, right? So it's anybody can float it, safely. And so that's another reason it gets kicked up as far as popularity. And there's a ton of bugs up there. I mean, let's get real. That is really where most of the bugs are in the river. More salmon flies than goldens, but I would say it's almost 50-50, I would say. I tend to go to the lower river. Case in point, 3 years ago, Memorial Day, the upper river, I was going to go to the upper river and ended up meeting Travis down low. We put in a pine tree. The upper river was full. No more boaters passes left. I think it was 550 boaters passes during Memorial Day.
300 a day? I can't remember.
I don't remember. 550.
It's always full.
But it was jam-packed. Like, I couldn't get a boaters pass. So we put in a pine tree. Literally from Pine Tree to Max Canyon, there was one boat and 2 bank anglers. So we got miles and miles and miles of every piece of water we wanted. There were fish in every single piece of water we fished. And it was almost surreal just thinking like an hour and a half upriver was a full war zone. And we're on the same the same river, and we're just having like the most peaceful freaking day in the world. And we hook fish like every single spot. We hook multiple fish. There are less bugs down there, but that doesn't mean the trout aren't as keyed in on them as they are in the upper river. And I would say the lack of pressure is huge as far as finding fish willing to come up. So for locations, do not be afraid of the lower Deschutes River. And by lower, it's, I would say
below Maupin.
Below Maupin, right?
Yeah.
Below Shears Falls is what I would consider lower, for all intents and purposes, not lower. But it is a little bit harder to read, for sure. It's a little tougher to navigate. You're kind of billy goating up and down those banks a little more because they built the road and there's some tricky areas to get down. But is it worth dealing with the crowds? I would say I will absolutely work a little harder and try to figure out water without, 500 freaking people in an 8-mile stretch of river. Not to say you can't have a good time. I mean, I got to the Warm Springs section for a long time. We could always find fish, right? It's just a matter of how hard you want to work. But if you're looking for that peaceful killer day, like mopping, below mopping is a phenomenal place to dig in and really learn some water.
I feel like it's a little easier down there too, in the fact like you're not going to have as much pressure, you're not going to have as much floating pressure, you're not going to have as much bank pressure, and in general, and not just salmon fly hatch, but fishing in general, like the less pressure, the better the fishing can usually be, especially if you're not willing to get very combat-y like you can in that upper in the prime of the hatch up in Warm Springs. You're going to have more people. You're going to have to work harder. But, you know, like you said, there's a few more bugs. There's a few more fish. So, like, if you're willing to push that extra effort and you really don't care about a lot of people, then that shouldn't matter to you. But if you're new and you're trying to get this hatch and you're trying to, like, figure it out and feel uncomfortable, get shouldered somebody, then maybe the lower river is the best bet. You get away from, I will get away from.
Flow versus bank fishing. Most people don't have boats, right? So we're kind of talking to the majority, if you will, of you know, people on the bank that don't have boats.
Buy a boat.
Yeah, if you want more fish, buy a boat. That's kind of the, but I shouldn't say that because there's a lot of boats out there. But the mopping stretch and below mopping is going to be much more bank friendly for you just because you've got a road and you've got 40 miles of public access, all BLM managed public access. The Warm Springs side, you're going to be able to park at Mecca. From Warm Springs, you can go down to Mecca, and that's it. Then you're hiking to Trout Creek, or you can drive into Trout Creek, and that's it. And you're hiking up to Mecca Flat or Warm Springs. The wading up top in that Warm Springs to Trout Creek section is vastly easier than it is down low. Mopping and below mopping is trickier wading for sure. So based on your physical capabilities, you know your body. I don't know your body, but if you need something a little easier to wade and a little more parallel with the river so you're not up and down the banks as much, you can kind of walk the river in the river more, then yeah, Warm Springs or above mopping is a good choice. But even above mopping has some tricky areas. The one thing with locations too is we hear it all the time in the shop. Most people think that driving up to the lock gate, which is above mopping, is going to get you away from the crowds. That couldn't be further from the truth. That will put you into everybody who thinks they're going to get away from the crowd. So just be careful of that. You can drive clear up to the lock gate and then find 20 parked cars all stuffed in there. And you're driving by like really good water at the time. So I guess what I would say is if you see good water and it's open, take it. Because there's no guarantee that you're going to get good water if you pass it.
Timing in the hatch. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I 100% agree.
Good.
I guess it can vary. The timing of the hatch, that's like the hardest thing to kind of predict. And there's a lot of factors kind of involved, right? Everybody wants us to have this crystal ball. And I guarantee you tomorrow I'll probably get this month, or Jason will get whatever. But it'll be someone like, what day, what hour this next month? When's the hatch happening? Like, can you tell me what spot should I be in? Yeah, exactly. And I wish I had this magical crystal ball, or if I knew the day of the hatch, like 100%, like I'd at least make $100.
Yeah.
There's no real prediction, and there's a lot of these, factors, and a lot of it's water temperature based. I don't know if the dam's going to release more water next week. I don't know if it's really going to warm up in Moppin as far as air temperature. I don't know if the Crooked River is going to release more water that's cooler, that's going to cool down the surface water on Billy Chinook. So like there's all these little factors that are going to change this. Now we kind of have an idea of when it's going to happen, and we can kind of have an estimated guess, right? And the kind of like timing again can vary. Like we think we know it. Like last year was a prime example of some weird weather and the White River blowing out and the hatch not behaving at all in the way it normally does. And so it got pushed pushed later in some areas, but then some spots had the same timing as it usually does. So that's a little bit of the hard part about timing. But like, what would give you your best inkling on when to go?
I mean, every year it seems to be, April 28th-ish, we're start seeing bugs in the lower river, and then...
But not necessarily keyed in on
No,
it yet.
no, not keyed in. Well, I don't know, man. They all eat at night. So we've had really tough days in the early days of that. Like maybe bugs have been out 2 or 3 days, maybe 2 days or whatever. And you're nymphing and fishing PMDs and doing this other stuff during the day, but come evening when trout's metabolism is naturally increases when there's more bugs around, and it decreases when there's less bugs around. So the metabolism of the fish follows the food, basically. And mornings and evenings is when there's the most food around, so their metabolism just naturally increases. That's why you just see rises at night, they're just hungrier. And you can fool a trout a lot easier when they're hungry. So even early hatch, you can get away with catching a few on salmonfly dries. Like as soon as it's twilighty, they get kind of dumb. So I would say, depending on when you leave, I mean, we were catching fish April 28th, just in the evening.
Yeah, but you only catch dumb fish.
That's all I care about. There's dumb fish, and that's fine. I'm fine.
I want the educated fish.
I'm fine with dumb fish. Luckily for me, I can find the dumb ones. So I don't know. I would say if you see some bugs, and it's early hatch, we're talking April, maybe the first week of May. If you can't stay till evening, if you can't stay till dark, then I would focus on other things that are catching fish. I wouldn't necessarily force it too hard, because you're not going to, be successful, and you're going to drive home bummed out. But if you can stay till dark, it's worth it in like the last hour and a half to throw in a Clark Stone or something and just see like what you can get. Give it like 20 minutes, right? Like if nothing's happening in 20 minutes at prime time, then yeah, switch, do whatever. But usually by May 10th, I would say by May 10th, Moppins, they're eating them. Like
it's starting.
Yeah,
as long as the weather's cooperating, that's like the normal.
Yeah, this year's been cooler, though, than normal. But at the same time, we've got the dam that controls most of the temperature. So it's going to be just like every year, like hurry up and wait and see what happens. But I'm thinking around May. I don't know. I don't see it any different than any other year. So May 10th is going to be my...
Yeah. And for the people that don't know, like the hatch used to, before this new dam mixing tower, used to like slowly work its way upriver. And it would start lower, down more towards the mouth, and it would work its way with a progression of water temperature up towards Warm Springs. Now, because of the mixing tower, a lot of the temperature all kicks in at once. So, like, the hatch still kind of progresses upriver most years, but a lot of times it might be delayed from, like, Maupin to Warm Springs by, like, a week instead of, like, 2 or 3 weeks like it used to be. So, when we're talking about, like, May 10th, we're kind of talking like lower river.
Right.
So I mop in down. And then typically I think if I were a betting man that like 15th to 18th of May is around what I said.
Star's gone safe. 18th, of course.
18th. I love the 18th.
Of course.
It's my favorite day.
Of course they're going to be on the 18th.
Well, keyed in. So the 18th for Warm Springs.
For all you out there in TV land, that's called a cop-out.
Yeah. I can put it... So I'll put my money on it that though you have fish that eat something here on the 18th, right?
All right.
Not be a salmon.
So we know who to trust in this conversation.
Snake lows.
Another thing having to do with timing is I can't express this enough. We talk to people constantly at the shop about it, and about 1% of people listen. Is stay till you can't see the tip of your rod anymore. Like that is where miracles happen. That is the miracle time. I don't typically put in unless I'm bored, but if I'm really getting after it, I put in my boat at noon and I pull out at 9:30, 10. That is my shift. We see a ton of people that show up at 7 We saw a bunch of people are like 9 to 5 banking on the Deschutes for the salmonfly hatch. Follow the metabolism and take full advantage of nature's laws, where it's simply just fish when they're hungry, right? So you can show up at 6:30 in the morning. Just don't expect them to be eating a bunch of salmon flies or golden stones. Absolutely fish dead caddis or nymphthoryphals and kind of get your pregame on or whatever. But you may gas out. I don't know. You could be behemoth superhero and be able to fish it, but fish from 6 to 10. But if you do show up early, just leave some in the tank for night. Take a nap, do whatever. Really, you want to stay till dark. That last 3 hours can make the day, and if you leave before that, you will really not know what you missed. You can come talk to us, and we'll be happy to tell you what you missed. But stay till dark. Like, it will save trips. I'm telling you. Like, the Deschutes is the most manic, crazy river as far as stability in fishing. You go there 3 days, and each 3 day, the weather's the same, the floors are the same, but the fishing is very different all 3 days. It's just that last 3 hours that can just make a tough day into a great day. And trust me, guiding for so long, I would much rather have good evenings closer to getting off the water than good mornings further from getting off the water, because it's a long time in between morning and takeout. So that driving home pumped is way cooler than driving home bummed out.
You may need an extra Red Bull or coffee.
But, or stay the night, like get up camp, that way you can get up early and fish dead caddis and nymphs and stuff in the morning and catch the little sippers and stuff. And I mean, which is equally as cool. I mean, honestly, get real. Like if you're fishing little CDC spent caddis to sipping, rainbows, like that is way cool. So go back to camp, take a nap, get some, fuel in you, and then just get ready for that evening. Super important to stay till dark.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like, most time, like bugs, especially over there, will have dew. Early mornings, those salmon flies, they hate any moisture whatsoever. So, like, they're not going to be moving around or very active anyway in that morning time. It's once that heat really gets on them and they're on the grass and they're on the trees, that's what really gets them flying around. And that's why I feel like that afternoon, evening is also so much better. The night that you see what looks like the Birds movie, Hitchcock, and they're just all up through there, you picked the right day.
And they make huge migrational drifts, like usually about 8 p.m., I would say.
Yeah.
You'll just start seeing like every salmon fly like flying upriver. And if you leave early, like this has happened to me, where like you're leaving early and they're just smacking your windshield like locusts, and you've just screwed up. But so wait for the big, they're clumsy flyers. They get blown in all the time. So just wait. It'll happen. Wait, keep fishing. It'll happen. So that's probably one of my biggest tips I can actually give you. That's one of the most important. Top of the list, most important. And it's simply be fishing when nature says it's time to eat, right? It's real simple.
So next up, we kind of got locations, right? And the first most important thing is, if you're trying to hit this hatch right, know which section is fishing good, right? If you hear that the hatch is epic right now, and that person is talking about like mopping, and Warm Springs hasn't started, and you go to Warm Springs and you're like, "Aw, I'm sad." So like pay attention to like what's going on. Also, like how long ago that was, right? If someone was out there and you got a report from your buddy 2 weeks ago and he's like, "Man, mopping's epic," and then you go to mopping and it's 2 weeks later and it's probably not as good as it was. Those bugs are further upriver. So maybe you need to go up a little bit higher, chase that hatch, right? That is so important. And have, some backup plans, because if you do go to a different location and then maybe it's pre-hatch, have some stonefly nymphs, have some caddis, have some other stuff.
Always have a backup plan. Like, you drove a couple hours to get there. Maybe you drove further. It used to be, I would guide people from all over the world. People would literally fly into Portland I took a guy from Tasmania. I've had tons of people from Japan, France. Everybody used to fly in for this hatch. They probably still do. I'm not guiding as many different people now. But so you traveled a long ways to get here. So have a backup plan. Like have some nymphs, have some PMDs, have caddis, like have all the other things. Don't be so hell-bent on fishing salmon flies that you lose a lot of good fishing just because I should say, do what you want. If you only want to catch a fish on a salmon fly, then fine. The Deschutes has about 3,000 fish per mile.
He counted. He swam the whole moon.
Right. And I counted 3,000 exactly. So 3,000 fish per mile, and I think they count them at 8 inches. So we'll say like 2,000. We'll say 2,000 fish per mile. We'll say 2,000 fish per mile, 12 inches and over. If you've walked a mile and you have not hooked a fish, you've literally passed 2,000 fish. So do something different. Switch flies, go deeper, go bigger, change colors, do something. I give my fly 15 minutes before I change up. If I know I'm on good water, you get 15 minutes, and if you don't perform, like you're getting cut off and we're going to go do something else.
And then like as this hatch progresses and we're in the mix of it, especially once the words got out, the crowds, it'll get busy, like straight up. Like there's going to be people you're going to run into. Like it's a thing. You're going to see other anglers. It's not like this is your river. So kind of how to manage some of those crowds. Like one of my favorite things is like I have no fear going behind somebody. You don't know if that's their first day on the water. You don't know, even behind another guide, like you don't know that are clients, like maybe it's their first time holding a fly rod. So like fish are very still hungry, even after a fly is thrown improperly, or like maybe they were fishing the wrong fly. Maybe you have something different, whatever it is. Don't let crowds bother you. I love seeing other people out there. It's fun. And then you get to enjoy it with them. That's the best time. If everything is epic and you get other people around, everybody's your friend. If fishing sucks, everybody's not your friend. But like the other big thing that I would say is most anglers were lazy. We are 100% lazy. And when you go to a spot and you like get out of your car and you walk 10 feet and you're like, this is as far as I'm going today. Like, you're probably going to have a rough time because probably everyone else that parked right there did the same thing. So walk down the trail. Go to places that other people don't go. Like, find a different section. Go further down the road. Drive further down the dirt roads. Go down to Max. All the stuff, right? And like, get away from the guy that's just going to walk 10 feet.
And get a wading staff so you can wade deeper. That's another thing. A lot of water gets passed up because it's a little tougher to wade. That third arm will make you get into places that are much harder for most people. So wading staffs could be really key in finding fresh water. Let's talk about, I think maybe my number two. My number two thing is having enough flies and having a huge variety of flies. Meaning, if you're coming to buy 24 flies, let's say most people buy about 24 flies, I would much rather you get 2 each of 12 different patterns rather than go, I want purple chubbies and golden chubbies and a dozen of each. Chubbies are great. Chubbies are the pacifier. I call them the binky. People get so focused on those white wings that every other fly becomes nearly impossible to see. You could be fishing a 4-inch long Clarkstone and it just disappears because you just get so zeroed in on, trained on these big white chubby wings. Chubbies work, all right? I'm not saying they don't work, but they don't work all the time. They sure don't work all the time, and they really don't work like really late in the hatch. Would you agree?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, chubbies have their time as the first
thing would agree on.
Yes, I'll get dumped used to it. Chubbies have their time and place. Pre-hatch, when no fish cares, they'll eat anything. But like, have some different colors if you have some. But don't worry necessarily about all one color.
Right.
Have some purple, have some tans, have some terra narcissus, all the things. But really, it's variety. Variety is what goes. But yes, I would say steer a little clear of the chubby.
I mean, I have a ton of chubbies. I use them late, mostly, right? I use them like towards the end of the day where I need to be able to see it, and fish are not quite as keyed in, or they get dumb. Like, they get dumb the later is the dumber they get. So I've seen it millions of, maybe not millions, thousands of times. Fish will come up and refuse a fly. Happens all the time on the hatch. And like, get used to it. If you're fishing the salmon fly hatch, get used to refusals.
But that's a player.
That's a player. That's the cool thing about a fish coming up and refusing your fly is you've got a fish that is going to eat. This fish is hungry. He's switched on. They're eating salmon flies. They just didn't want your fly. Maybe there's too much drag or whatever. The safest thing you can do is if the next, they come in, refuse your fly, do not make another cast. You will put that fish down. Immediately strip it in, change your fly, and then throw something totally different out. So if they refused a chubby, throw on a Clarkstone or a Norm Woods. Like, don't go from, gold chubby to terra narcissus chubby. Like, I would make a big change. So like a chubby to a Clarkstone is a massive change. And in that time it took you to change flies, you've now rested the fish. You haven't given away the ghost. And the next cast, you're throwing a hungry fish that wants to play something totally different. Over the years, I've switched flies. I've gotten 4 different refusals, and they finally ate the 5th one. And then the 5th fly, the next fish refused, and I tied back on the fly that got refused by this fish, and you catch that. So you're going to be switching flies. I mean, the most successful day you're going to have salmon fly fishing, you will switch your fly maybe 100 times. Like, I'm not exaggerating. You're going to burn through tippet how are we G-rated? Like S through a goose. Plan on burning through tippet. And that if you're burning through tippet and get your flies like handy so you can switch back, switch forth, get your dry shake because you're going to be shaking all these off. The more tippet you burn through, the more fish, I swear, the more fish will come to hand.
Yeah. And like that, and those sparse patterns, the more natural S patterns like that Norm Woods or Clarkstone or Stimulator, whatever the old school patterns typically, like that is going to be a really good option for your hunting stuff, where you're bow and arrow casting underneath a tree where you've got like a very slow moving water section. Maybe it's a back eddy, whatever it is, where those fish are finicky. You throw a chubby like under those trees a lot of times, and those fish just aren't like the first fly they've ever seen. They're going to refuse it, like, period. So, like, immediately, like, when you're in those, like, technical spots, cut off your dropper because it's just going to wrap around a tree. But, like, put on something more natural. It's going to help you a lot, and it's going to lead to a lot more fish.
And here's the thing, y'all. Like, we literally argue with people about this in the shop all the time. And we have seen this for years, and so this isn't like a hypothesis. I'm telling you how I became a busy guide, like, honestly. And busy guides are busy because they get people fish. So these are things that literally we've seen a million times. Change your fly a lot, and have a copious amount. And then the sneaker is go buy yourself a pack of Sharpies and color the things up. So like, especially chubbies or anything with a big white polywing, is we get into like mid hatch, late hatch especially, and I will like lift up the wing and color the entire side black, so it's just not this big reflection of white light coming down this river from this wing. I'll color half the thing black. I'll cut it in half and then color black. I'll color the bodies black or brown or whatever, but get yourself a pack of Sharpies and like 3 natural colors, and don't be afraid to doctor these things up. Have a pair of like little scissors with you, or like I love the mitten clamps with the cutter on them, and I'll cut off legs. I'll be doctoring flies up as I need to throughout the day. It used to be we'd have rubber leg Normwoods and regular Normwoods. I mean, you can always rip off rubber legs. They don't always want rubber legs, so just don't be afraid to rip off the rubber legs and toss it back out there. Shoot, I mean, We've caught them on chubbies with like one leg left, you know, and
Oh, the worst flies that are like super beat up are the best.
right. But so doctor up your flies. Don't be afraid to just rip them apart and get them sparse. Don't cut a Clarkstone up too much though, because it won't float.
So all I would say is just have, like, if you're having a slow day and maybe you're just really not keen on salmon flies, make sure you bring some droppers.
Yes.
Like caddis pupas, PMDs, maybe a green dragnet, but like have some. Like I try not to fish those as much as possible just because I want it on the dry, but like it is an option and it can save a day. Yeah, that would be one of the last tip on cutting flies.
You drove 2 hours or more. Get a bent route. Catch a fish.
Yeah.
Here we are going over some flies, and if you've been living in a closet and you don't know what a chubby Chernobyl is, here you go. So this is the famous purple chubby. They come in a lot of different flavors. This is the Norm Woods version. And then I consider these chubbies, they're called Fool's Gold. They're might as well be chubbies. But this is what I'm talking about the darker wing. I can sell this to people all day long. I don't have to sell this fly. People just grab it. But when I'm talking about spooky fish and catching more fish, if you're in the best spot in the river and this isn't catching fish, this 100% could catch all the fish they missed. Look at this dark wing. This is way less light reflection on a bright day. This can literally mean changing from that to that, the difference between no fish and a fish. This will catch plenty of fish, but this is the good cleanup, right? If you're going behind people, the dark wings are really, really good.
Yeah, and if you're trying to match a hatch, like you look at this versus this, these two full golds, like this is more of a golden stone where this is more of a salmon fly, right? And so if you're more towards mopping, you might end up with more goldens like this, and so maybe you want that pattern. Or if you're more towards warm springs, there's more salmon flies, so have something that looks more like that.
Or you can do what I do and put this on first and then put this on second, about 2 feet, and double dry it. Double dry is the way. Let me tell you, it's the way.
Just only need a 12-weight rod to cast it.
That's fine.
Okay. So these are some of the natural patterns that we use. This right here is a classic Norm Woods. And then we also have just a classic Clarkstone. Some of the Clarkstones like this will be a golden. This is kind of a salmon. Do the fish? No. I don't think the fish asks the fly what it is. So like I would consider interchangeable, but like these are your very classic patterns, right? Where they're very sparse. They look very similar to the actual bug on the water. If you actually throw a salmon fly out there and throw one of these guys on, it's hard to tell the difference between the natural and that. It may not look like that on that piece of paper, but it really, really does. So use these especially in your situations where you have spooky fish or a situation where you're trying to get very tactical, like under a tree, and you need to like bow and arrow cast it in there.
And one thing about the Norm Woods and the Clarkstones is these are going to get flushed. They float like crap. Don't worry about it. A ton of fish will take this an inch or two below the surface. So if it gets flushed and it sinks, let it ride. And again, this isn't a bad call. Double dry. If this gets flushed, if the Clarks gets flushed and you can't see it, you will see your big dry fly moving around like it's an indicator. So this will catch your main vision, and a rise. If you can't see it, if it's late at night, the rise form behind your big one will catch your peripheral vision, and you'll be able to set the hook that way.
The last thing I have to say on any of these salmon flies too, but especially these classic patterns, make sure you have some desiccant to like shake with that thing, dry it out before you reapply floatant, because they just absorb some water.
Yeah, and calftail, which is what this material is that the Norm Woods is tied with, is not a floating material, all right? So this will need a bunch of help floating. Nothing on here is hollow. At least the deer hair here is hollow, so it has some natural flotation. Without floating, this will sink to the bottom. Now for the mixture. This is a double stack chubby. These are probably the best for floating a dropper. So if you're planning on doing some hopper dropper stuff, especially early in the day, this will be your best friend. This will float one of the big stonefly nymphs.
Or Titanic.
Or Titanic, yeah. So this is a great one. It will catch some fish, but it's also like the best dropper floater out there. The Moorish steel stones and fluttering stones, this one is probably the only fly that I cannot differentiate with my eyes on the water at 30 feet what's a real bug and what my fly is. This thing will look just like a real bug, and it gets eaten really, really well. This is, I think, probably in your top 3.
It's definitely up there, 100%.
Yeah, Nick loves this fly. I kind of got a love-hate thing with it. This, though, this fly right here is the most amazing creation in all of salmon fly history, if I do say so myself, because it's my fly. This is going to be when they want big stuff and, you know, you just got to feed them meat. It does really work well, but again, just like all the patterns, it works really well on some days, on some hours, and it doesn't work worth a damn other times. So again, variety is key.
And like, as much as I don't want to cop to this, because like I pretty much think that thing's heinous.
The truth comes out.
It's a big,
It's never.
it's a bird. It's basically like you look at a hummingbird and you're like, no, you want something bigger than that? That's this. But like I've been fishing with him and made fun of it and watched him immediately catch a fish on his first cast with it. So apparently it really does.
And it was a nice fish, but
And it was a nice.
that's the first time Nick's ever told me he doesn't like my fly, so that's awesome. This thing right here, I don't know what it looks like, but it's called a cat vomit, and it looks like cat vomit. This is your sneaker, right? I don't know if there are a lot of shops stock this, but we have found mega love on this thing. And so this is a great cleanup fly that most people, maybe not after this podcast, but this is the kind of fly that you're going to want to search out. And if you tie, this is even better. Just tie them ratty, tie them sloppy. This is a great cleanup fly. So you want to look for stuff that not every shop has. And so if you see some unique flies like the cat vomit, pick a few up because you will be pleasantly surprised.
So remember that this is probably one of the best hatches on the Deschutes. This thing's world famous, right? But there's so many other things that you have going on too. Just because they're not eating that big bug doesn't mean you have to just fish a salmon fly. There's droppers, there's other hatches, there's green trace, there's caddis, there's PMDs, there's all kinds of stuff for these fish to eat.
So it is now time to talk about the gear, and I want everybody to say goodbye to Nick. This will be his last time on the podcast. The truth has come out about my fly, and I don't know if I can move on.
Yeah, but my soul is purged from that disgrace of it.
All right, well, I'm glad you feel better. So, gear. I would say, you may disagree with me, I'm going to say the most important piece of new gear you can buy is leader and tippet. If you're still, we get a lot of people who only fish once a year. This is what happens, right? People fish maybe 5 days a year, and it's all during the salmon fly hatch. Your leader and tippet absolutely has an expiration date. Freshen up your leader and tippet before you go. There's nothing worse than finding out on the river when you tie your first knot that, pow, nothing is going to hold, and now you're stuck out on the river having to just baby everything. Would you agree? Fresh leader, fresh tippet?
Oh, yeah. Well, or just at least check your knot. Like, 100%. And if it's breaking, that's an issue.
Right.
And it's really bad when you get out there and you've got that leader from last year, but it got wet or it was in the sun. And now you have no other leaders and it's breaking.
Right. Like 3X, if we're talking, we fish mostly 3X and 4X. I'll fish 4X late in the hatch when they're getting real spooky for sure. 3X is 8.2 pounds, all right? So when you're tying these knots, you can land steelhead on 3X. Like, we've landed steelhead on less, right? So when you're pulling these knots, like, make sure it's going to hold. Make sure she's got some strength behind her. If it's just powing, you got a long bummer of a dad.
And if it's a hot day, like, make sure you put some saliva on that thing or get it wet because, like, friction burns monofilament.
Right. So, fresh leaders and tippets. I'm going to do a shameless plug here and tell you what I use. I pretty much now exclusively use the Trout Hunter brand only because it is the absolute best. The knot strength is incredible. Pound per test is incredible. The tippet itself is super high quality. And I love it. I won't go back to anything else. That's my baby. We got history, me and her. So we're gonna rock and roll with that.
I love that stuff too. Now, I just, I like long leaders.
He does. So that's another thing we're going to talk about is long leaders. We hear all the time 7.5 foot. That works in some instances for sure. When you really need fast turnover in a really tight location, a 7.5 foot leader is going to be fine.
Like bow and arrow stuff.
You're right.
Yeah.
The longer leader you run, the longer drag-free drift you get because the extra coils in the tippet will let that fly ride naturally. And the goal here is to make it look like the fly is not connected to you in any way, right? That is the goal. You want your fly to act just like a leaf would on the top of the river. So the extra tippet and the sloppiness of it aids in that existentially.
Well, 100%. And there's better.
If you really hate yourself, you can increase that by tying a little loop knot on your dry fly instead of doing a clinch knot. I think there's times and places, especially in slow, slack water, that can be a benefit. So yeah, little loop knots on your dry flies can be just kind of like that little extra kick that really nobody else is going to do on the river. My number 2 suggestion is look at your fly line. Would you say the fly line's your number 2?
Yeah.
A sinking, cracked, old fly line is going to offer you nothing but frustration on the river. Fly lines that float need to float, and if they're sunk a little bit in the current, what happens is you go to make your mend, and your fly and leader, tippet fly, everything moves towards you because it's stuck in the water. So you want a new fly line or a good shaped fly line that when you mend, it's on top of the water and your fly pretty much stays put, but just the fly line mends, right? That's the goal. And actually a long leader will really help in your mending and not moving that fly all around too. Certain tapers are going to work better for these. This is like casting a balloon, essentially. They're very, they're not air, air resistant? They're going to freaking make it hard to cast. So a heavily front tapered, like a Gold Max, SA MPX, a really heavy weight forward, like a 1 bump or a 3/4 bump, something in that range. Rio Grands, if you've got those. I love that line. It's no longer with us, but we've got some custom grains coming just for the occasion. They're really going to aid in turning these over and dealing with the windy conditions. Yeah, you don't want a double taper. You don't want a technical trout. You want like a pretty punchy weight forward.
It's going to make life easier, especially the Deschutes never has wind. So, especially in the afternoon when you want to be there. So that aggressive forward taper will help a lot.
Correct. And it helps with backcast room because a lot of times you're like literally touching the grass behind you, and so it helps a lot with not getting caught behind you because you can shoot more line forward instead of having to carry more line in the air.
Yeah, and just again, if you have a cracked fly line, just like what you're saying, like if it's sinking, you've got a problem.
Don't even go. Yeah, really, just don't.
Like have a fly line influence.
Yeah, I wouldn't go if you have a cracked fly line. Actually.
Third thing, and I would say this is about as equal as fly lines, and we've touched this here, but floating. Like if you run out of floating and you're out there, and that happened to me once, that was a sad day.
Yeah,
so luckily, if you're with a buddy, you just gotta kind of mooch off him. But when your fly is sinking and he's down 100 yards, that sucks.
Right. So yeah, the essential gear list is going to be fresh leader, fresh tippet, good amount of floating. Dry shake, I would say, is in the required realm of this. Those little mushroom Amadou patches worked really good too. They're really expensive, but they worked really good. And then the liquids, there's a little bit of a debate on these liquids. I like the Flyagras and the dips and all that stuff. I like them. I don't use them to float my fly necessarily, but I do use them to clean off the dry shake. So after your fly gets caked with enough dry shake, it actually starts sinking. It's just caked full of all this powder. And the dips are floating dips, and you will dip your fly, and it cleans off all the dry shake and kind of gives you a fresh start. So all that stuff is like mucilin mixed with lighter fluid. When you dip your fly, you get a perfect coating of floatant, and then the lighter fluid evaporates as you cast, right? So it's just another floatant, but it also cleans all the garbage off your fly and kind of gets you back to neutral.
And great for the environment.
great. Yeah, leaves a great oil slick. Along with essentials, a good fly line. So you've got leader, tippet, floating fly line. Make sure you got nippers. Make sure you got hemos, and it's pretty basic after that. You know, aside from ammo, you need bullets to go hunting with. You don't need a ton of stuff to come out and salmon fly fish. You just need to make sure you have what you need, if that makes sense to you. And then as far as rods go, I bring a 5 and a 6. I really enjoy 6 weights on the Deschutes for the hatch, just because it makes it a little easier to throw the fly, and it really helps in the wind. And if I'm going to nymph in the morning or something, it lobs big heavy stones better than a 5. 5s are fine. 5s work really good. I fish 5s too, but I'll usually rig my 5 up with a Clark's or a Normwoods or a stimulator. And then for the foamy big stuff, all the meat and potato chunky stuff, I'll go with my 6. But you know, I'm old and I need the help, so that's what I got.
Yeah. 5. If you just got a 5, like a 5 works. 6, 100%. Like when you want to punch it out there, and especially if you're having a challenging day and you've already been throwing that rod for 6 hours, that 6 weight just has more mass in that line, so it's going to deliver that fly a little bit easier. But ideally, like, I mean, if I could throw the fly and it's not windy and all that stuff, 5.
Yeah, 5's easy. I mean, you know, 5's the mothership, right? Everybody should have a 5 if you try to fish. So now reels, you just want a reel to match the rod. There's no like right or wrong with reels. Get the best reel you can afford. I like drags. Some people don't. Most of the reels that don't have drags, I just don't like that tiny little arbor that hardy trout reels have. I just don't like doing this for the full 20 minutes before I can just reel up. So large arbor reels, you can bring fish in really fast. You can get your line in really fast. Lamson's Hatch, Galvin. This is a new Airflow. This is $200. It's made by Airflow. It's called Airlight. This is a pretty sweet reel that they just came out with. That I think is a really good price point for a fully machined reel. I think they friggin' rock and roll on that one. So, again, basic trout gear is what you need to go on the Deschutes for the salmon fly hatch.
So, some of the things that you might kind of come across when you're out there. So, the one thing that I want to say that's, I think, my most important thing, a tip that I can give you over this whole damn thing, and this is my secret. This is my secret to the hatch. And it is go with every day you can. Yes. Like, you never can predict exactly when it's going to happen, but you can hedge your bets by going once a week or twice a week or whatever you can. Because one of those days, let's say you can go 3 days of the month of May and push it towards more of the end. One of those days is going to be okay. One of those days is going to be pretty good. And one of those days is going to be great. Which one of those days is that going to be? It could be the first day, it could be the second day, it could be the third day. You don't know. And some of the factors that are really going to change that are weather. Now, the hard part is I've gone out there and had some terrible fishing days in bad weather. Thunderstorms, high winds, whatever. But I think one of my best days was also in that. So you never really know. So, like, you can't catch fish from the cow. So you've got to go to the river, and even if the weather isn't ideal, it's still worth it. You're still going to have a fun time. Again, one of my best float trips ever. I feel like not as far as catching fish, but like the river was way up. I think it was running like 6,000 or 7,000 out of Madras, CFS. And river was brown, gross, nasty. Fish were off. I think we caught like 3 fish out of 6 of us in 3 days. But like that was one of the most memorable trips that like I've had as far as the laughs and the experience with good friends. And so like just because it's a bad day doesn't mean it has to be a bad experience.
And they saved a little baby goose's life. And that was a different hell. That was and fed a green drakes for 3 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Weather you can't control, flows you can't control. I will say though, I think there's a lot of misinterpretation on flows on the Deschutes. I understand. I think it's going to be kind of a high water year. It's seeming like it's going to stay above 5,000 CFS at least. And 5,000 CFS is kind of the barometer of what's high and what's low. I would just say say 5,000 is kind of the baseline, right? 5,000, consider 5,000 normal. Above 5's high, below 5,000 is low. So that's kind of the baseline mark. I don't consider 6,000 high. some of the most incredible salmonfly years I've ever had guiding the rivers at 6,500 the entire season. So I don't shy away from 6,100 like it is right now at all. Like, I will absolutely go. I fished that river up to 9,000 and caught fish. I personally would much rather have it higher than lower, only because you get camouflaged better and the fish are in much tighter. And so a lot of areas that normally you'd just be walking through because they're too shallow or whatever, like, they come up to perfect height, perfect speed, and they hold a ton of fish. And so you can actually stay in one spot and catch more fish. And the banks are slower. Like, when it's a little high, just that bank water just opens up so nice. There won't be as many spots to fish, and that's the thing, right? If it's really busy and the river's high, you do lose spots. You just simply can't get there. But work on your casting, that'll help a ton, and work on your accuracy, that'll help a ton, because you can get into places that other people just aren't skilled enough to do. So your skill set does absolutely play a pivotal role in how many fish you're going to catch on this hatch. Length and accuracy, and like tuck under casts, and work on your like sidearm casts and all the little technical stuff that'll absolutely help you out there. But high water doesn't scare me. I love fishing high water, but I'm a sick man, so.
Yeah, and there's a difference, I feel like, between high water and stable water. Right? So, like, one thing, especially, like, right now, the Deschutes at 60, 61, like, it's been 61 for quite some time. And so, like, the fish have got to eat. Like, they're hungry. If they don't eat, they die. Right? So, like, at some point in time, they're like, oh, okay, 6,000 is the new norm. This is where I like to be. And they're just going to continue to eat. When we have what we had, like, I think it was last year or a year before, where it's like 4,800, and then all of a sudden it goes to 7,000 in one day. Or I think there was a flash flood that went to like 9,000 or 10,000. Like, those fish in that instant typically shut down for a day or two.
Yeah.
So if it's these spikes, that's rough. But if we get like higher flows and it's running like a steady 6,000, or heck, it's steady 6,500, like, the fish don't care. Like, they're like, oh, cool, the food's here.
Yeah.
You know, but they just, it's these drops and valleys and peaks and all this other stuff with flows that can make it a little harder.
Yeah, stability is key, for sure. But, you know, you never know. You can have the best of your life at any given time. And then wrapping it up, the last thing I will say is wind. Wind can be your absolute best friend, and it's going to frustrate you, but it clears everybody off the river. Typically, I'll go Memorial Day, and one of the best Memorial Days I've had, we put in late, obviously, because I always put in late, but it was crazy windy, like insanely windy the entire Memorial Day weekend. When we put in the boat, there was nothing but just a sea of trailers coming out of the river. Everybody's been dealing with wind and adverse conditions for 3 days, and they're like done with it. I mean, it was nuking wind. So if it's windy, it's going to suck casting, all right? So understand that casting's going to go to help. So position yourself and make shorter casts in places that you can, or learn how to feed line and just plop your fly in the water, feed it down into places. Don't let frustration overcome the opportunity you have of fishing an empty river full of hungry fish and knowing that that wind is knocking a ton of food into the river and those fish are getting really drunk on salmon flies. So just understand, you're not going to be able to hit all the places you want comfortably. Wind sucks, but use that to your advantage and just work it out, figure it out, and really just know that if it's really windy, be optimistic, because everybody else is going to jam out of there, and you're the, freaking Spartan that's going to like make it happen and stick through it and catch all their fish.
Oh yeah. Yeah, wind does some great things to the bugs, because all those things are in trees and grass, right? They're going to get knocked down. You may have a shitty time casting, but like, you're going to possibly have a great day out there.
Yeah, they're horrible flyers, so anything that can knock them in will. So I think we've covered it, y'all. So I'm sure there's stuff we left out. But if you have any specific questions, you can always email us at info@theportlandflyshop or questions@theportlandflyshop. Either one works. I will get them both, and between me and Nick, we can pretty much answer all your questions. And if we can't, then we'll let you know. But yeah, if you got any questions, let us know. And what we want is for you to experience just the awesomeness and the consistent good days, I guess, that we get, only because why not spread the love? We really want you all to be successful, and we want you to come into the shop just freaking 10 miles high, just coming off one of the best days of your life trout fishing the Deschutes. Like that's our goal, is to get you more bent rods and really just, share in just the awesomeness of this time of year. Like coming off winter, we're going to be t-shirts. Like if you can imagine that, we're like this close to fishing in t-shirts, which is really all I want, is just to fish in a t-shirt. But you got anything to add, dude, besides you hate my fly?
Yeah. No. When the shoe fits.
He's holding his guns.
So, thank you for tuning in for the first podcast as we all figure this out and go down the path. And, as you guys, if there's some topic too that you have interest in and want us to do something on, send us an email as well, and we can see if we can do that one. But yeah, thanks for tuning in and joining us on the first initial inauguratory podcast for the Portland Fly Shop.
The Portland Fly Shop podcast.